Adolf Hitler's sex life is a source of debate for many historians. It is thought that by investigating this private matter, we could understand more about how the mind of one of humanity's greatest villains worked. This discussion is not limited to the Führer alone. On this aspect, much research has been done for numerous members of the Nazi Party, from the highest-ranking officers to the common soldiers. How did the vile policies of Nazism translate into the sexual sphere? Were they commonplace practices, or was there something sinister about them? Today, in this new episode of Military History, we will tell you everything about the fascinating sexual life of the Nazi leaders. Let's start by talking about the leader of the Nazi Party, Adolf Hitler. Due to his importance in history, he is the figure who was most investigated and conjectured about regarding his sexual life. In 1942, the Office of Strategic Affairs, the predecessor organization of the CIA, was responsible for preparing a comprehensive report on the Führer. This included information about his intimate relationships and his sexual preferences. The report stated, almost without a doubt, that Hitler practiced homosexuality from an early age. According to the document, between 1910 and 1913, he spent time living in a men's hostel located in Vienna. The text declared that, in this place, elderly men came to look for young boys to obtain homosexual pleasures from them. The report even gave a name that could have been closely related to Hitler. This was Rudolf Hess, a high-ranking member of the Nazi Party and a close collaborator of the Führer. Because of his effeminate behavior, Hess was rumored to be gay and even a transvestite, being nicknamed Miss Anna. After the failed coup d'etat in 1923, when the National Socialists attempted to seize power, Hess and Hitler were sent to prison, where they shared a cell, according to the report. The long period of confinement caused both men to begin a secret relationship. In any case, this link, if it had existed, would have ended in 1941, when Hess flew at his expense to Scotland to negotiate a surrender with the Duke of Hamilton. However, he was arrested after landing. When the war ended, he was tried at the Nuremberg trials and sentenced to life imprisonment. Beyond the rumors and doubts about Hess's sexual orientation, there is no reliable evidence of the existence of a relationship with another man. It should also be said that the report from the Office of Strategic Affairs has been accused by some historians as lacking foundations. According to Ian Kershaw, author of the most important bibliography on the Führer, these rumors were intended to fuel these rumors to serve as anti-Nazi propaganda. It was written at a time when homosexuality was frowned upon in many places in the world, including the United States, so they wanted to relate Nazism to sexual preferences seen as immoral. For Kershaw, Hitler disliked physical contact, as the idea of contracting a sexually transmitted disease repelled him. On one occasion, in his youth, he was asked if he had ever loved a woman. He responded that he had never had time for something like that, and that he probably never would. However, it is known that the dictator was romantically involved with some women. Without fail, these relationships always have some testimony that gives them a disturbing nature. One of these women was none other than his own niece. Geli Raubal was only 17 years old when she moved to her uncle's house in 1925. Hitler was known to be obsessed with the teenager, whom he kept under surveillance 24 hours a day. She was not allowed to leave the home without guardians and was even prohibited from being in a relationship with a man. Years after the Second War ended, Otto Strasser, a Nazi deserter, testified that Hitler forced the young woman to have sexual relations with him. Also, Raubal was supposedly forced to urinate on the Nazi leader, thus satisfying one of his great fetishes. In 1931, the young woman shot herself by shooting herself using her uncle's pistol, although some claim that she was murdered, and subsequently, all evidence of her relationship with Hitler was eliminated. Let's listen to the author of a book that investigates his death, giving his opinion on the matter.
Also insofern sehe ich das schon als ein Cover-up, ausgehend auch vielleicht von einigen Leuten in der Polizei schon. Denn damals haben sich in der Münchner Polizei schon so zwielichtige Gestalten herumgetrieben wie der spätere Gestapo-Müller. Ja, das war eine bewusste, freundliche Behandlung des Falles nach der Theorie, die die Nazis offiziell verbreitet haben wollten.
She was not the only woman linked to the Nazi leader who had a suspicious death. Renate Müller was a German actress of great fame in the years that Hitler was in power. Some sources indicate that Renate had a sadomasochistic sexual relationship with the Führer, involving whips and leather clothing. According to the actress, Hitler not only liked to dominate others, but also to be dominated. She allegedly told a close source, "What turns him on the most is being kicked on the ground." Blonde, blue-eyed, light-skinned, and undeniably beautiful, Renate was considered by many Nazis to be the ideal Aryan woman. But she did not share the party's politics. She refused to participate in propaganda films, and she also turned a deaf ear to requests that she leave her Jewish lover. This caused her to fall into disgrace with the government. Towards the end of her life, she had become an alcoholic and addicted to morphine. She died at age 31 when she fell out of a third-story window. There are many theories about what caused her fall. Some say she was simply drunk and lost her balance. Others mention that members of the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, entered her building that day. Whether they pushed her or whether she panicked and jumped out the window is unknown. Her death remains a mystery. But there are other sources that support these sadomasochistic tendencies associated with the Nazi leader. Marianne Hoppe, another famous actress among party leaders, declared that Hitler derived sexual pleasure from watching scenes of violence in the cinema. On one occasion, while the Führer was watching a film showing the German people fighting against Napoleon Bonaparte's French troops, she stated that the following happened. Hitler began to get strangely excited, moaning and rubbing his knees, while in the film stones were rolling down the slope against the French. I don't know if he was in his right mind, but he had some kind of orgasm. Beyond these romances, the Führer's best-known relationship was also his last. We talked about the bond he had with Eva Braun. They met when Eva was just 17 years old, and she was working for the Nazi Party's official photographer, Heinrich Hoffmann. Only after the mysterious death of her niece did Hitler begin to associate with her. Likewise, this relationship was kept secret for 14 years, since he thought that, if it was disclosed, his popularity among German women would decrease. Furthermore, the Führer sought to give an image of a chaste hero, so the general public was unaware of this relationship. Many historians speak of Eva Braun as someone superficial and alien to the policies of Nazism. There are 2 known suicide attempts, which many researchers agree were not serious, but rather sought to attract the attention of her lover. The only time Eva seemed interested in the war was in 1943. That year, Germany went into a full war economy, which meant, among other things, banning the production of cosmetics and luxury products for women. But after Eva protested to the Führer, he instructed Albert Speer, the Minister of War Production, to slow down production rather than ban it outright. Beyond the fact that she was alien to the party's policies, the loyalty that Eva had to her lover cannot be questioned. In April 1945, with the Soviet Red Army approaching Berlin, she moved to the city to be with Hitler, refusing to flee from her side. On the 29th of the same month, they got married. A day later, with the war already lost, both took their own lives. Below, you can see a film of the couple, shortly before her death.
The late Adolf Hitler himself, if he is late. Reports said he and Eva committed suicide in Berlin. Some think, however, that Adolf is still alive, so that we may hear of him again. Who are the children? They're thought to be Eva's son and daughter, and likely enough Hitler was their father.
There were rumors that Eva Braun was pregnant by Hitler when she committed suicide, but there are historians who deny this. According to researcher Thomas Lundmark from the University of Hull, Hitler and Braun never had relations because she suffered from a strange gynecological condition called MRKH syndrome. This would have caused Braun's vagina to be too tight and her sex to be excruciatingly painful for her. According to Lundmark, Braun, when the relationship was revealed, served as a cover, as a shield against rumors about the Führer's intimacy. As we see, Hitler's sexual life is, even today, a controversial issue that continues to generate controversy. We already talked to you about the Führer's alleged homosexuality, and also about how several historians do not give relevance to these rumors. But, perhaps surprisingly, there were confirmed cases of homosexuality within Nazism, even in high-ranking positions. Ernst Röhm, the head of the SA, the original paramilitary organization of Nazism before the SS, was openly gay. As is known, the party persecuted sexual dissidents, as they considered it to be one of the reasons for the social deterioration of Germany and the Western world. But Röhm was, if not accepted, at least tolerated due to his friendship with the dictator. It was said that he was the only one who dared to call him Adolf, or even Adi, instead of my Führer, even when his sexual preference became better known, which caused both his subordinates and members of the already formed SS to begin to complain. Hitler himself came to his defense. He argued that these are things that belong solely to the private sphere, and that the SA was a purely military organization and not a moral institution. However, these sayings were not reflected in the policy of Nazism. It is estimated that around 100,000 men were arrested for homosexuality between 1933, with the arrival of Nazism to power, and 1945. Many of these were sent to concentration camps, where only 40% managed to survive. Röhm was one of these fatal victims. Although he was not sent to one of these terrible places, he was arrested in what is known as the Night of the Long Knives in 1934, along with other SA leaders. While they were primarily accused of treason for plotting an alleged internal coup, his homosexuality was also used as a motive. Hitler considered sparing Röhm's life, which did not help rumors that he shared his tastes. But Röhm's SS leaders and rivals, Heinrich Himmler and Reinhard Heydrich, convinced him of his bad influence on the Nazi party, and he was finally shot. He listens to historians talking about this plot against the SA chief.
No hay secretos cuando Göring y Himmler intentan convencer a Hitler de que hay un elemento corrupto en la sección de asalto. No cabe duda de que Hitler es homófobo, y la idea de que Röhm y los líderes de la sección de asalto monten orgías homosexuales es algo que no tolera.
A Hitler le dicen que la influencia de Röhm no solo corrompe la jerarquía de la sección de asalto, sino también a las juventudes nazis.
While some high-ranking Nazis stood out for their mysterious sexual lives, the opposite happened with others. Joseph Goebbels, the party's propaganda minister and, according to many, second in power to the Führer, had a great reputation with women. Nicknamed by high society ladies as the Ram, it was rumored that he was obsessed with sex and that he preferred mature women. In addition to the testimonies of third parties, we have those written by Goebbels himself, which include letters that he sent to his conquests. Here he talks about his first love affairs, nights spent with 2 or 3 women at a time, and other details. You can also notice his great anti-Semitism in his relationships. When a teacher he was with told him that her mother was Jewish, he immediately stopped seeing her, saying that her charms had disappeared for him. 30. At a Nazi demonstration, he met Magda Quandt, whose fanaticism for the party had nothing to envy of that of Goebbels himself. They married the following year, but this did not mark the end of the German womanizer's love conquests. When the actress Lida Barova moved near her house, the propaganda minister began an affair with her that would last approximately 2 years. He even began taking her to public events as her lover. This caused Magda to complain to the Führer. Hitler ordered the minister to stop seeing the actress not only because of her wife's protests, but because her Slavic blood made her inferior. As had also happened with Renate Müller, Barova fell from grace. Her films stopped being shown, and the Gestapo followed her wherever she wanted her to go. Luckily for her, she had a different ending than the other actress. Lida was able to flee Germany and went into hiding until the end of the war. Goebbels, for his part, continued his extramarital affairs until the war came to Berlin. After Hitler's death on April 30th, 1945, he, along with his wife Magda, poisoned his 6 young children while they slept. They could not conceive of living in a world without the Führer, and that extended to the children. After this terrible act, Goebbels shot his wife, finally putting a bullet in her own head. Not everyone had the promiscuity of the propaganda minister. The previously mentioned Heinrich Himmler, for example, was abstainer from it in his youth. He thought that chastity was one of the greatest virtues a man could have. On the other hand, prostitution, masturbation, and extramarital relations were traits of a weak character, worthy of being exterminated. Until 1927, he met Margarete Boden, whom he would marry shortly after. With the Nazi Party in power, Himmler completely changed his ideals regarding sex. He even thought that monogamy was a work of Satan, promulgated by the Catholic Church. Based on this, he separated from his wife, with whom he had a daughter, and then had a relationship with his secretary. He went on to have 2 other children with her. But Himmler did not only act on an individual level. He was the main promulgator of Lebensborn, a program that sought to encourage the reproduction of people considered racially pure. It consisted of giving homes to Aryan women who became pregnant out of wedlock, or to women who had the desired genes for future German generations. These places were responsible for providing them with help in raising their babies. Furthermore, abortions were legalized for children with disabilities or with impure characteristics, but were severely penalized if the future baby was Aryan. As you can see, the idea of abstinence was very far away for Himmler. He overhears his own great niece talking about this aspect of the Nazi officer's life.
Era un defensor de la bigamia, especialmente para los miembros de las SS. Tenía la opinión de que ningún hombre, especialmente ningún hombre de las SS, debería estar obligado a pasar toda la vida con una sola mujer. Aunque él se contuvo durante la guerra, muchos miembros de las SS practicaban la bigamia en secreto. Heinrich Himmler estaba decidido a introducir después de la guerra la posibilidad legal de que los hombres de las SS pudiesen formar 2 familias y así producir más niños racialmente puros.
To finish today's installment, it must be mentioned that there are also alleged reports from Allied intelligence services which relate even darker facts related to low-ranking members, like meetings where perverse acts were carried out without any cover. In one of these reports, orgies organized by Christian Weber, an SS general, are mentioned. The aforementioned defector Otto Strasser described Weber as the most despicable of Hitler's subordinates. According to the report, in these meetings a naked woman was tied to a revolving table on which members of the SS were sitting around. Weber made her spin around, and when she stopped, the man in front of the girl had to rape her. This report, like others we saw, may not be entirely true. Perhaps the enemies of Nazism lied or exaggerated to further demonize the party and turn public opinion completely against them. But seeing the sexual atrocities that Nazi troops committed in their campaigns of conquest, it would be naive to reject these theories categorically. We reach the end of the video and we want to ask you, how true do you think these reports are? Leave us your answer in the comments box below and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to learn about many more military events that left their mark on history.